Hi, everyone. I'm Rebecca Cuddy. I'm the Institutional Repository Librarian at UNC Chapel Hill, and I'm the current Hyrax product owner. And I'm here with Daniel Pierce, who's a developer at Indiana University Bloomington and the current Hyrax tech lead. So we're here to give you a brief update on Hyrax and then talk about the Hyrax Valkyrization work, as that's a key part of what's been going on with Hyrax lately. And also we'll talk a bit about the Hyrax Maintenance Working Group and the Hyrax Interest Group. So in case folks aren't familiar with Hyrax, here's our short description. Hyrax is a Ruby on Rails engine built by the Samvera community. Hyrax provides a foundation for creating many different digital repository applications. So our big accomplishment, which I hope everyone has heard about, is that we released Hyrax 5. So this is the release which includes Valkyrie and support for Postgres. This was a huge part of the effort on the part of the community, which spanned years. I think I mentioned a few folks that I joined the community in 2017, and we were talking about Valkyrie and Hyrax then. And so it's really, really great to see the work get completed. We'll talk a bit more about the specific teams that helped get us to Hyrax 5, but we had a lot of work by the community members. We had 3 release candidates to get to a stable version, which required extensive release testing, bug fixes, and issues. It was really, really a great effort. I did want to mention that we've also cut a minor release, which is Hyrax 5.0.1, which has some bug fixes and minor changes, particularly avoiding an N+1 query when deleting files. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. And now I will pass it on to Daniel to talk more about the technical details of Hyrax 5.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, I'm Daniel Pierce, the Hyrax tech lead, at least for the moment, and from Indiana University. Hyrax 5, it's a big deal in the past few months, although it's been a big deal for at least a couple of years, as Rebecca said. So a couple of highlights I just want to point out about Hyrax 5. If you're coming from older Hyraxes, then a big change is that if you're generating a new application, like if you're following the Rails template file to generate a brand new Rails app that uses Hyrax, then that generator is going to use Valkyrie resource models and the associated other classes versus what it used to do, which was make active Fedora works or models. So that's a big change to be aware of. As of now, it would still be possible to make active Fedora works and that kind of thing in Hyrax 5. But as you can see on the last bullet point on this slide, active Fedora use in Hyrax is deprecated. So we are planning to remove it in a future major release. I don't know if that's Hyrax 6 or later. That depends on a few other things. But I would advise against starting up a new application that's making use of active Fedora within Hyrax at this time. So currently the only supported like metadata persistence adapter for Valkyrie is the Postgres adapter. As we've announced before, Fedora 6 is also going to be supported, but it's not quite there yet. But it's definitely in the works. There's a Fedora 6 working group that is tasked with making that happen. So it will be soon, probably potentially Hyrax 5.1 or 5.2. Hyrax 5 also had updates to make use of or to support the Ruby 3.2 and Rails 6.1. Those are the minimum versions supported now, and there will be work soon to bump those version numbers up again, especially for Rails since 6.1 is at the end of its life cycle. So I think those are the main points. Next slide. Another big piece of work done during this period was we've moved Hyrax's continuous integration, or the specs that get run, the spec tests that get run when a new code PR pull request is made. We've moved those from running on Circle CI to GitHub Actions. I believe that was primarily a budgeting concern, but it ended up being more difficult than expected, mainly due to the stability of Chrome in those cloud environments. But we got it figured out. There's still some more work to do in this area, but just be aware that new pull requests are now running on GitHub Actions. Other At this time, other Samvera code repositories are not using, or have not moved away from Circle CI yet. But that's probably something we'll be looking to do, just to reduce the amount of minutes that we have to purchase there. Next. So if you're a little lost with all this talk about Valkyrie, the quick overview is that we've had in the past this library called Active Fedora that follows a pattern of object persistence, which is, say, like how data is stored within a Ruby on Rails application. Follows this pattern that Rails came up with, and that's what Active Fedora has been doing when saving things to a Fedora repository. Over time, we found that that was lacking in certain ways, and members of the Samvera community came up with a new idea, which they called Valkyrie. It uses a different design, what they call a data mapper, to allow more flexibility in how our metadata and files are stored. So that flexibility has allowed Postgres and Fedora to remain to be supported adapters within Valkyrie, as well as other options. Like files can be stored in like an S3 via Valkyrie, or so this all came up mainly to make our websites more performant. We were running into big slowness issues when ingesting large work, especially things with lots of pages. And this has been a big improvement as far as how fast things can be ingested into a Hyrax site. Next.
This is my slide. So we also wanted to briefly mention the Hyrax Valkyrization community sprint work, which was the effort by the community to get Hyrax running Valkyrie, and majorly contributed to the Hyrax 5 release. So the community sprint ran from June to October of last year and included participants from 5 groups. We worked in overlapping sprints. So one group would work for a week and then overlap with the next group for the second week and then cycle off. And that continued throughout the summer. And the maintenance working group participated throughout. So the goals for the sprint were to ensure that the Postgres version of Hyrax was using Valkyrie past the normal Hyrax QA testing process. We also converted specs and tests to reference Valkyrie rather than Active Fedora. And then Daniel set up a testing environment for a Fedora 6 backed version of Hyrax, which is called Serenia. You may have seen that referenced in on Slack or in some meetings.
All right, so the short-term to medium-term roadmap for Hyrax looks something like this. I don't know if these are in any particular priority order, but certainly the thing that I'm looking at right now is getting the Fridge and Freya migration adapters merged into Hyrax for the Hyrax 5.1 release. This is what some folks have been calling the double combo PR on Slack. But essentially it allows a I guess you could say, legacy Hyrax site that's using Active Fedora to transparently do migrations of its data, to get things out of an Active Fedora backed model into a Valkyrie backed model, with the goal being that it wouldn't matter if that's Postgres or Fedora adapters in that Valkyrie model. So that's still a little bit of work in progress. This was a huge amount of work done by SoftServe. So the PR in Hyrax is quite large, and the PR in Haiku, which, as I understand it, that's where was kind of their test bed to get all this code together, was that PR is even larger. So been stepping through really both of those, and coming up with a kind of MVP set of changes that you'd apply to a standard Active Fedora era Hyrax app, or DASI test app in this case. So it's still in progress a little bit. I know this has been blocking some other PRs, but I want to make sure that we're not getting distracted away from this, since it's very important. Next thing is there is our analytics dashboard was disabled at some point in the last year, due to changes in the upstream systems that works from. So that's going to be reinstated. Pawnee, Palsy, and Georgetown are funding SoftServe to work on this. And I'm very thankful, because it's been hanging around far too long, and I apologize for that. As already mentioned, Fedora 6 support through Valkyrie in Hyrax, or the Sirenia test app, as was mentioned. That's also coming up soon. We do need to upgrade to Rails 7 and other various dependencies, like the Avalon said they're doing Solar 9, and I expect Hyrax will be looking at that as well. Rebecca and others have been doing an accessibility audit. There's going to be a restructuring of the Nurax servers. Currently we have 3 Nurax servers. One of them is actually still running Hyrax 3, and that's feeling not very useful at this time. So we're going to convert that to make use of the Valkyrie Fedora 6 adapter, so everyone can see at this time all the 3 different ways that the Hyrax can be set up for its backends. So those are the Nurax servers. If you're not aware, I don't have links handy, but it's generally like stable.nurax or pg.nurax .samvera.org would be the URL. And they're really just test instances of Hyrax. But if you're curious what Hyrax looks like or can do, then that's an easy way to see what a very bare bones instance of Hyrax looks like. And finally, next week is a Samvera Developer Congress. And we want to point out that we do these in an unconference style, where we don't really have a set agenda when we start. We rely on everyone who's attending to come prepared with ideas of things to work on, if they have any, or just be interested in picking something up that others have suggested. So that runs all next week, starting Monday. Any participation is very welcome.
I also wanted to give a shout out to the new Hyrax leadership team, who will be cycling on this year as Daniel's and my terms end. So as you may have seen from the Samvera list, Nicholas Amenda at Tufts has agreed to act as product owner once my term ends at the end of October. I'm really excited that he's taken on this role. I got to talk with him about the role last year at Connect, and I think he's going to be just fantastic at it. So welcome, Nicholas. And the tech lead position will be currently vacant once Daniel's term is up in July. If anyone is interested in the In the role of tech lead, please contact Heather. You're also welcome to contact me, and I'm going to volunteer Daniel for this if you want to know more about what the tech lead entails, please feel free to ask us. This role is really critical to the ongoing success and maintenance of Hyrax, and making progress with Hyrax is going to be pretty challenging if we don't have a tech lead. I'm also been told that the Samvera board is looking at ways to support additional Hyrax community developer training, and that Heather may announce more about that pretty soon. So we also want to talk a bit about the Hyrax maintenance working group. So for those who aren't aware, the Hyrax maintenance working group supports the core maintenance and development for Hyrax. So we fix bugs, we review issues, and PRs. Our main form of communication is the Hyrax-WG channel on Samvera Slack. We're most active there during sprints, but I do monitor it when we're off our sprint cycle if folks would like to chat. If you're interested in getting involved, we would love to have you. We operate under a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off sprint cycle, but you do not need to participate in the full cycle. We welcome your time in whatever form it takes. Participation in the Hyrax maintenance group also fulfills hours for the maintenance pledge drive. Our next sprint technically starts next week, but as Daniel mentioned, there's a developer congress, so we'll be participating in that. We'll resume our normal work on May 20th with a stand-up at 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll put the link to the stand-up in this Hyrax-WG chat prior to the meeting. So please feel free to join us. And here's a list of all the people who've participated in maintenance working group sprints since last Connect. We have a core team of Julie Hardesty, Daniel, and myself, and others work on a sprint-by-sprint basis. We greatly appreciate everyone's contributions. And we also have a Hyrax interest group. So this is the Hyrax interest group is the place to learn more about Hyrax and the maintenance working group. It is the core leadership and management body for the Hyrax roadmap. So if you have questions, like to discuss something about Hyrax, this is the group to do it in. You can also ask us questions in our Slack channel, which is Hyrax-interest-group. The Hyrax interest group normally meets the second Wednesday of the month from 11:30 to noon Eastern. However, that is tomorrow, and we'll all be at Virtual Connect. So we've moved the May meeting to May 15th. And at that meeting, I'm planning to discuss or facilitate a discussion on what the community would like to see in Hyrax feature-wise post-Valkyrie. So if that is something you're interested in discussing, please plan to attend. And that's it for us. Here's how to get in touch with us. And if you have any questions, feel free to post in Slack as well. Thank you.